For decades, science fiction has dedicated its efforts to show politics in space. But what about the politics for space? We've seen empires rise and fall in space, and despite how mesmerizing space odysseys can be, space is a real national security issue. On April 1st, 2026, 4 NASA astronauts climbed aboard the Orion spacecraft and began the first crew journey toward the moon in over 50 years. 3 days later, they photographed Earth as a thin crescent from deep space. That same week, China's space agency announced that its Chang'e 7 mission remained on schedule for late 2026. Its goal was to scout water ice and begin resource surveys in the region NASA is trying to reach first. 2 of the biggest powers in the world are in a race to determine who controls the infrastructure, the resources, and the rules of the most strategically consequential territory humanity has ever occupied. And the outcome will change life on Earth in ways we've never seen before. Astropolitics is a term that describes the relationship between state power and the control of outer space. The core argument is, whoever controls key strategic positions in space controls the communications, surveillance, and navigation infrastructure that modern militaries and economies depend on. For most of the Cold War, that logic operated quietly in the background. The first uses of space were military, reconnaissance satellites that allowed the US and Soviet Union to monitor each other's nuclear arsenals without invading each other's territory. But what was once background has come forth. According to the journal Frontiers of Political Science, there are now nearly 14,000 objects in orbit as of mid-2025, ruled by a treaty made in 1967. The 1967 Outer Space Treaty bans nuclear weapons in space and reserves celestial bodies for peaceful use. It does not ban conventional weapons. It does not ban anti-satellite missiles. And it does not define what counts as a weapon when a satellite performs a close inspection of another satellite or rams it. According to space lawyer Michelle Hanlon of the University of Mississippi, speaking to Medusa in August 2025, space is already militarized. So the question now is, what would a space conflict look like? The most important question to ask before we speak about the implications of space politics is, why is space a national security priority? An article from the Council of Foreign Relations titled "Why Space is a National Security Priority" dissects the question perfectly. The article argues that spatial infrastructure is vital for modern life. The US economy and daily life are fundamentally dependent on space assets. Satellites provide critical services including GPS navigation, precision agriculture, inventory management, and financial transaction processing like credit card taps. Moreover, the article explains that the military and strategic necessity is an outer layer that works as a multiplier of force for the US military. National security depends on satellites for secure communications with forces, intelligence gathering on adversaries, and providing early warnings for potential nuclear missile attacks. This speaks directly about the satellite reality of the US, because it possesses the most intelligence assets in space than any other country, making it both an advantage and a vulnerability. Because adversaries like China and Russia have developed capabilities like electronic jamming, cyber attacks, and direct ascent anti-satellite missiles designed to disable or destroy these assets. Furthermore, the economy, considered by many as a national security issue, especially under the Trump administration, offers new possibilities like access to orbit, explored by companies like SpaceX. And while this innovation strengthens US leadership, it also creates new dependencies that must be protected as critical infrastructure. Space is increasingly becoming crowded and, consequently, contested in some sense. A 4-fold increase in satellite payloads since 2018 and over 40,000 pieces of orbital debris have made the risk of catastrophic collisions a major security concern. The article also suggests that the US is at risk of losing its dominant position. China, in particular, is on track to deploy thousands of its own satellites, challenging US leadership and the ability to set international rules of the road for space governance. The lack of clear international norms and the potential for a nuclear weapon detonation in space, which would destroy global satellite systems, represent existential threats to both the US and global stability. In October 2020, the United States launched the Artemis Accords, a framework of bilateral agreements establishing norms for lunar exploration. As of early 2026, 61 countries have signed. In parallel, China and Russia are advancing the International Lunar Research Station, a competing framework backed by 13 nations. The ILRS targets a permanent nuclear-powered base at the lunar South Pole by the mid-2030s. The result is two competing space blocks, each building its own infrastructure and inviting partners into its orbit. The analogy to Cold War alliance structures is not coincidental. The stakes at the South Pole are concrete. The lunar South Pole holds water ice that can be processed into rocket fuel. It holds helium-3, which scientists believe could power future fusion energy systems. And it holds strategic position. Whoever establishes infrastructure there first will shape the physical and legal conditions for everyone who follows. China's Chang'e program has moved with discipline. Chang'e 4 landed on the far side of the moon in 2019. Chang'e 5 returned lunar samples in 2020. Chang'e 7 and 8, planned for 2026 and 2028, will scout water and test construction technologies for a permanent base. Artemis 2 is the first human return to the lunar neighborhood since 1972. The first actual landing is not planned until Artemis 4, targeted for 2028. NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman acknowledged the timeline plainly. They might be early, and recent history says we might be late. Now, on Russia's side, the tension is as big as with China. Russia vetoed a UN Security Council resolution reaffirming the Outer Space Treaty's ban on nuclear weapons in space. The US voted against a Russian counter-resolution the following month. 4 countries have demonstrated the ability to physically destroy a satellite through kinetic weapons: the United States, Russia, China, and India. But there are stronger weapons than kinetic that are subtler and harder to attribute. Electronic warfare, cyber intrusion, directed energy, and satellite rendezvous operations where one spacecraft approaches another closely enough to disable or destroy it without a traceable missile launch. According to the Washington Times reporting from February 2026, the US Space Force is deploying electronic satellite jammers and accelerating counter-space weapon development under a policy aimed at reasserting American dominance over China and Russia in orbital conflict. What we're seeing here is the development and simultaneous application of US astropolitics against old and at the same time new adversaries, now among the stars. The question the US faces in space is both military and structural. China's operational satellite fleet exceeded 1,060, with hundreds dedicated to intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Its space program operates with centralized funding, multi-decade continuity, and a stated goal of establishing what it calls an Earth-Moon Space Economic Zone. The US program operates differently. NASA's Artemis has been restructured under 4 presidents. Its lunar landing, originally scheduled for 2024, is now targeted for 2028. Each year of delay is a year in which China advances. What has changed the competitive picture is the commercial sector. SpaceX's Starship is central to NASA's lunar landing architecture. The proliferation of commercial satellites from Starlink to emerging constellations has expanded the orbital domain in ways no government program alone could match. According to the World Economic Forum, the global space economy is projected to grow from $630 billion in 2023 to $1.8 trillion by 2035. What the investigations and the government policy show is that the US is going back to space because exploration, modern life, and security are no longer separate categories. The next layer of infrastructure will be built by whoever gets there first, and whoever builds it will write the rules for everyone who uses it. The Artemis 2 astronauts have returned, but the landing is still 2 years away and China will launch Chang'e 7, and the orbital arsenals of every major space power will continue to grow. The space race has become about infrastructure, resources, and the rules for both. But let us know what you think. Should the moon be governed by international treaties, or by the countries that actually build there first? Leave your answer in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video. This helps us deliver the best content for you. And if you want to stay ahead of our releases, click the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen. See you in our next 10-minute brief.